DCS SITREP, the news show all about the world's premier combat flight simulator known as DCS World. This week we got a huge boost from Eagle Dynamics for those Red 4 fans who've been waiting for a fixed-wing Gen 4 aircraft from the Russian stables, which was promised in the form of the MiG-29A as far back as last year. Now on May 16th, ED launched an early access trailer and an announcement that you can pick up the aircraft in the e-store right now for 30% off, barring, of course, any ED miles you might have tucked away, which will allow you to drop that price a little bit further, which is what I did, made it even more appealing. Now, the trailer was an absolute sizzler, as these cinematic drops are prone to be these days, highlighting the aircraft from all manner of angles, flight regimes, and in combat modes too. So all of this glamour, as I said, is expected, but what is the team coughing up for your hard-earned dollars in, to be fair, an incredibly competitive flight sim environment, even within the franchise itself, with so many modules up for grabs these days or available for purchase, as I highlighted in a recent video. Now, the MiG-29A remains, according to the blurb here, one of the most famous fighters in the world due to its outstanding performance characteristics, reliability, and simplicity of the weapon systems. It is capable of performing high alpha maneuvers that make it deadly in close air combat. In addition to the R-73 and HMS, the MiG-29A is also armed with medium-range radar-guided missiles, a 30mm cannon, and unguided bombs and rockets. The Mikoyan MiG-29A has been operated by 39 air forces since its introduction in the 1980s, and approximately more than 100 are still in service today. So, key features for the early access module are as follows. They're telling us here we have a fully interactive and highly detailed cockpit based on 3D laser scanning and photogrammetry, which is the standard these days for modules in DCS, certainly any of the new ones being introduced, as we have discussed previously. Highly detailed and accurately reproduced external model, thanks to the aforementioned techniques these days to remodel and capture the detail for the aircraft. Highly detailed pilot model with the helmet-mounted sighting system, in-depth modeling of aircraft systems and equipment, navigation system modes, point-to-point mode for flying along a given route and flying to a programmed point, return mode for performing a return to one of the 3 programmed airfields available to it, and landing mode for landing at both programmed and non-programmed airfields, and a traffic re-entry mode for performing a reapproach to a programmed airfield in the case of a go-around. There is a detailed, or will be a detailed model of the gyro systems with fast and long alignment modes and onboard navigation equipment. Remember, the aircraft was designed to scramble, so the fast alignment mode is one of the features of the jets. The ability to program 3 airfields, 3 RSB and radio and navigation beacons, and 3 navigation points during the mission creation phase. And while flying the mission itself, realistic modeling of the SPO-15LM Buryoiza radar, warning receiver, and flare dispenser systems. The fire control radar with search and tracking modes for air targets that includes head-on, pursuit, automat, TWF, and close combat modes. I'm not sure if I don't know if they mentioned the specific radar in question. So anyway, regardless, infrared search and track, or IRST, and laser range finding, LRF, with modes for air targets. So we have infrared, close combat, helmet, optical, and bore sight. The LRF can be used to measure targets range with the automatic IRST tracking, and the LRF can also be used to measure slant ranges for target attacks on ground units. A ground attack mode that includes pre-designate OPT for use with moving targets and in windy conditions, non-pre-designate OPT for use with stationary targets and in calm conditions, and lastly TOS when bombing is conducted with a 110 to 130 degree pitch angle. In order to expand the combat capabilities for a covert attack on an aerial target and counter electronic countermeasures, the interaction of the FCR and the IRST's LRF has also been modeled. The kinetic ranged determination method, or KRDM, has been modeled for the FCR and the IRST LRF. So in the absence of targeting range data, this method provides precise range measurement. Basic identity friend or foe has been modeled, or will be modeled again. There will be an early access guide. There will be interactive training missions, and the full Russian cockpit and localization of avionics, cockpit, and technical inscriptions in English. At the final release, which will feature Ground Control Intercept Command Systems with the GCI, full IFF modeling, full flight manual, and a campaign by Eagle Dynamics, plus an increased number of missions and liveries. So what you're seeing there too is important as a juxtaposition between the final release and the early access. What you can tell, or should be able to tell, is that at early access, this aircraft is going to be mission complete, or largely mission complete. And I think that's important to mention again, because in the past, early access modules have been, in some cases, a little bit thin on mission complete, but that seems to be a thing of the past. Mission complete seems to be the new standard for releasing modules into the game, which is really good. Lends itself to much more user flexibility, user use, and generally a more enjoyable experience. So I'm pleased to see that. Like I said, it's kind of a standard now in the game, and it's something we discussed recently in a previous video. Now they remind us here as a round out to the newsletter that don't miss out on that exclusive 30% discount during the pre-purchase phase. Hurry, they say this offer only lasts until the launch, so once it's released into early access itself, then the discount will be reduced to 20% off. So there is some incentive to get it before it's released. Of course, not everybody is willing to do that. I understand that. Some people like to wait to see what the aircraft actually looks like in game from other content creators, so on and so forth, and then make a decision, post-release, which is fine. Now, they do say it will be available on Steam, but at a later date, and there's no mention here as such of what discount will be available, whether it's going to be the 30% off or 20% off or whatever else they decide. That's a separate matter because Steam is a different platform that they have to negotiate with. It's actually one of the reasons I went back to some time ago to the standalone version of the game, because I felt I was missing out on some of these pre-purchases. And the game has evolved a little bit. That gap between the two platforms isn't quite as great as what it used to be, but nonetheless, I'd much rather be able to have access to these things as soon as they are out. Again, a personal preference. Now, thinking about this in relation to the history of the aircraft and as a module in the game, where does this aircraft fit into our, I guess, Cold War and beyond series of 4th-gen aircraft that we already have, primarily actually as full-fidelity Blue Force aircraft, such as the F-16, the FA-18, and sometime in the near future, remember, the full-fidelity F-15C, which really is at the concept stage at this point, so won't be available for probably some years yet. The MiG-29 was developed in direct response to the aforementioned aircraft. It wasn't introduced, though, until the early 1980s, by which time the F-15 and the F-16, and to a lesser degree the F-18, had well-established reputations as some of the best fighters on the planet. Early model MiG-29s were not endowed with composite materials being introduced and used in Western aircraft at that time, nor did they release the jet with the famous fly-by-wire system, which was a key feature of the F-16. Now that system was a leap in dynamic flight modeling, allowing for what is known as a relaxed static stability feature, enhancing the jet's agility and maneuverability, especially in the dog-fighting arena. Now, prior to the published pursuit of stealth, which was ongoing in the Air Force's Skunk Works development of aircraft like the F-117 Nighthawk, which actually began as early as the late 1970s, believe it or not, the F-16 was regarded as the aircraft in which to measure all others in that arena, which was why the MiG-29 was developed as a counterpoint. The F-16 had a formidable reputation as a knife fighter in a phone booth, and even today is a seriously dangerous opponent should your stealthy presence be detected and reliance on stealth be detected, and it comes down to a dogfight again. It's generally something you want to avoid. Now, as formidable as the F-16 is, the MiG-29 is too. Despite its heavier construction and larger size, the dual engines produced enough thrust to punch it above a 1-to-1 thrust-to-weight ratio, a critical standard of maneuverability, and Western pilots were also alarmed to learn for the first time about the HMS system, which provided that off-HUD queuing for short-range missiles. In-game, the F-16 and the FA-18 variants already have that equivalent since they were later variants of the aircraft, and the Western forces quickly adopted that HMS system with the helmet-mounted queuing system that some of the aircraft use. So as a peer-to-peer adversary, it's going to be a very satisfying counterpart, I think, for DCS Redfall fans, and as I said before, it's long overdue in-game. Now, given the focus on the Cold War Germany map recently too, the aircraft will be at home there and also add to a large number of possible future scenarios. I'm excited to see what ED are building for a campaign for the aircraft also, and no doubt other third-party campaign builders will also embellish our options for its use in that department. I suspect too that the relative ease of its operation, its formidable prowess as a fighter, and capacity for air-to-ground roles will make this a popular option for players on both sides of the Blue 4 Red 4 camps. I'm looking forward to seeing it in the virtual flesh in-game. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and stay tuned for more information on this amazing aircraft. Well, this brings us to the end of another DCS SITREP, and while it was focused on a single topic this week, I think it's a significant one. Remember that last week we hinted, well, ED must be cooking something because there was a lack of substantial news over the last probably 3 to 4 weeks, which I thought indicated ED was cooking something, and they were. I'll leave you with some images though from around the DCS universe. We're still waiting for plenty of other things to come to fruition in the game. I want to thank you all for the likes, the subscriptions, and the comments, which helps this little channel chug along. Stay tuned for more information as it comes to hand about DCS World. This is Prickly Hedgehog out. Cheers, we'll see you next time.